Hi, I'm USA Today bestselling author Jennifer Youngblood. Thanks for joining me for One Chapter a Day, The Clean Romance Way. Today I'm going to be reading Chapter 11 of her Crazy Rich Fake Fiancé. Haven is freaking out over Wyatt's wealth. Would you be intimidated? I can understand where she's coming from. However, she can't be too hard on him considering that she's harboring her secret. Let's see what happens next. Chapter 11. They entered the mansion and walked through the large coat room that was bigger than Haven's living room and kitchen combined. "We can leave our luggage here. I'll have Ralph take it up to our rooms." Was Ralph a family member or a servant? For a split second, she hesitated, wondering if their things would be safe, especially the box containing Lillian's jewels. Then she laughed at herself. There were few places on earth as safe as this. As they stepped into the grand kitchen, Haven felt like she might have an out-of-body experience. Her legs were wobbly, her heart sputtering like a faulty engine in her chest. She prayed silently for help. It took all the effort she could muster to appear composed. Her gaze swept over the white cabinets and matching quartz countertops. The appliances were streamlined and modern. The large small pane windows allowed for an abundance of natural light, making the space feel airy and cheerful. A dark-haired woman stood in front of a built-in cooktop. A white apron was tied around her ample waist, and she was wearing white sneakers. She turned, a large smile filling her face when she saw Wyatt. "Charlie, it's so good to see you!" she exclaimed, holding out her arms and rushing to Wyatt's side where she embraced him in a tight hug. "Hey, Marguerite, it's good to see you." Marguerite pulled back, holding him at arm's length, her black eyes assessing him. "You're looking a little thin. It's a good thing you came home so I can fatten you up." She pinched his cheek and then gave it a couple of hearty pats. Wyatt chuckled. "Yep, your amazing cooking is bound to do that." He stepped back and moved next to Haven, draping an arm around her shoulders. "This is Bryn." He gave her a sideways look, eyes caressing hers. "My girlfriend." The warmth in his tone, combined with the significance of his statement, acted as a calming tonic for Haven's nerves. Was Marguerite Wyatt's mom? She wasn't anything like Haven had pictured. She seemed like a warm, salt-of-the-earth woman, the kind of person Haven would be friends with. Maybe all the worry had been for nothing. A relieved smile spread over her lips. "Hello," she gushed. "It's nice to meet you." She felt a little foolish for getting so worked up. It made sense that Wyatt would have a nice family. He was so down-to-earth and unpretentious. Maybe this woman had taught him to be that way. "Nice to meet you too, honey," Marguerite said warmly. "Welcome." "Bryn, Marguerite is—" He pursed his lips, studying her. "You wear so many hats, I don't even know what to call you. Marguerite cooks, takes care of the house, does the grocery shopping, and just about everything else that needs doing." Marguerite gave him a tender look. "I took care of you and your naughty sisters, changed more diapers than I want to count." She laughed. "Charlie has always been my favorite," she confided in a low tone. "Boys are so much easier than girls to deal with." "Aw, shucks, thank you," Wyatt drawled, a look of appreciation coming over his features. "Marguerite's like a second mother to me," he explained. A second mother who was an employee, Haven added mentally, her hopes dashed. It would have been so nice if Marguerite had been Wyatt's mother. At least there was someone Haven could relate to, the hired help. Haven should have remembered. Wyatt told her his mother's name was Beverly, and all the excitement she'd momentarily forgotten. Wyatt looked around. "Well, where is everybody?" "Aubrey and her crew have taken over the guest house." Marguerite frowned, her hand going to her hip. "Her two boys have been running around here like bucking broncos. They've already broken a vase and picture frame." Wyatt laughed. "Well, I'm not surprised. It's too bad it's so cold, otherwise they could run around outside." "They need to do something or else the place won't be standing when they leave," Marguerite grumbled. She shook her head, the loose skin around her mouth jiggling slightly as her lips pressed together in a taut line. "I wish I could get a hold of those boys, teach them some manners." "Well, you certainly could do that," Wyatt laughed. "Aubrey's been a pill," Marguerite said quietly. She shook her head, dismay filling her eyes. "I don't know what's gotten into her. She's got such a high opinion of herself and is so hard to please. I don't know how her poor husband puts up with her." "Aubrey's high-strung," Wyatt explained. "That's one way of putting it," Marguerite grunted. "Margie and Aubrey have never gotten along," he added. Marguerite's head shot up as she straightened to her full height, glaring at him. "That's not true. We got along just fine until Aubrey cocked an attitude." Her thick brows darted together in a sharp V. "If she were a kid again, I'd set her straight in 2 seconds flat." "I'm sure you would." Wyatt laughed easily, like Marguerite's rants were a common occurrence. Haven felt a sense of foreboding. Was Aubrey hard to deal with, or was Marguerite simply spouting off? She hoped it was the latter, but sensed it was the first. She made a note to lay low and stay out of Aubrey's way. "Well, where's everybody else?" Wyatt asked. "Well, your dad's still at the office. Ellie's in her room. I believe your mom's in her office taking care of the last-minute details for the Christmas Eve party." She paused like she had just thought of something. "Well, where's your luggage?" "In the coat room," Wyatt answered. "Oh, I'll call Raph and get him to move it up to your rooms. You'll be staying in your room and Bryn in the East Wing guest room." She looked at Haven. "Ralph's my husband." Haven nodded, her mind going back to the sleeping arrangements. East Wing? It sounded so formal. "I was hoping Bryn could sleep in the guest room next to mine," Wyatt countered, his tone sounding like a 5-year-old pleading for a cookie. Marguerite waved a finger, her head going back and forth as she spoke. "No, sirree, there'll be no hanky-panky going on in this house." She raised an eyebrow, giving them both a steely look. "Not on my watch." Haven's face went hot as Wyatt chuckled. It was on the tip of Haven's tongue to defend herself, but Wyatt spoke first. "You don't have to worry, Margie," he said affectionately. "Everything's on the up and up between me and Bryn. I've been a perfect gentleman." Marguerite gave him a pleased look. "That's my boy," she drawled. "I'm glad a few of the things I taught you sank into your rock-hard noggin." She pointed at his head. Wyatt winked. "Just a few." He motioned at the cooktop. "What you making?" "White bean chicken chili and cornbread." Haven's mouth watered. "Sounds delicious. Anything Margie makes is fantastic," Wyatt added. Marguerite beamed. It was touching how close Wyatt and Marguerite were. "I'm making spiced pumpkin bread and oatmeal raisin cookies for dessert," Marguerite said. Wyatt wrinkled his nose. "Oh, man, don't put raisins in the cookies. Put chocolate chips." "Raisins are good for you," Marguerite countered. "They'll keep you regular." Haven jerked in surprise, then sniggered. Wyatt also started laughing. "What's so funny?" Marguerite's hand went to her hip. A smile spread over her lips. "Kids get amused at the strangest things." Her tone rang with reproof. "When you get to be my age, you'll realize that bowel movements are no laughing matter." The comment made Haven want to laugh even harder, but she suppressed the giggles. Wyatt winced. "All right, enough." He shook his head, chuckling. "On that note, I say we go find Mom." "It's nice meeting you, Bryn." Marguerite's eyes moved over her like she was memorizing every detail. During the inspection, Haven had to fight the urge to smooth down her hair. "Welcome to the family." Haven's eyes widened. "Oh, we're not engaged," she almost blurted, but the word failed to come out of her mouth when Wyatt kissed her cheek. "She's a keeper," Wyatt said adamantly. Something indiscernible but very real swept over Haven. She got the distinct feeling of belonging, maybe a little déjà vu. The feeling vanished as quickly as it had come. Still, she wondered what it meant. Was this a sign that she and Wyatt belonged together? A fierce and overwhelming longing rose in her chest. She wanted a life with him, to feel loved and valued. Also, to feel so alive and in the moment. Yes, she was intimidated by his wealth. She liked it better when she thought Wyatt was just a regular guy, a chiropractor. It was hard to wrap her mind around the staggering wealth. Despite it all, Haven was falling hard for him. It was happening so fast. Then again, matters of the heart had no timetable. She felt as though she had been with Wyatt forever, like she couldn't imagine her life without him. Marguerite's comment brought Haven out of her thoughts. "She's a beauty." Marguerite's dark eyes lit with appreciation. "Oh, thank you," Haven murmured in surprise. "You seem like you're just as beautiful on the inside." Marguerite held up a finger. "The inside's even more important than the pretty package." Yeah, Wyatt laughed. "We get it. No need for a lecture." Marguerite gave him a sharp look. "There's always a need for sound advice." She wagged a finger. "And don't think you're too old to hear it, Charlie." Wyatt grinned. "No, ma'am. I'm never too old." Marguerite made a shooing motion. "Go on and say hello to your mama. She's been waiting on pins and needles for you to get here." She held Haven's gaze. "There will be plenty of time for you and me to get more acquainted." "I'd like that," Haven said, realizing as she spoke how much she meant it. Marguerite made her feel welcome, like she belonged. "All right, let's go meet Mom," Wyatt said with a cheeky grin. He tugged on Haven's hand and pulled her behind him. With every step, she couldn't help but feel like a lamb going to the slaughter, or more appropriately, an accused criminal facing the jury. They went through the large living room. Wyatt hardly gave it a second look, but Haven went bug-eyed as she took in the scope of the expertly decorated room. The cream furniture was transitional, walking the line between modern and comfort. The walls were a soft vanilla with a hint of yellow. The accent pieces and pillows were done in bold reds, yellows, and blues. Haven looked past the tall wall of windows to the back terrace and pool. It was hard to believe that there were the people who lived like this. The dinging of a clock caught her attention. She looked around, spotting the grandfather clock on the far wall. When they reached the study, Wyatt paused. Haven gave him a questioning look. He grinned and put a finger to his lips, a wicked glint in his eyes. He stole around the open French door. Haven's heart drummed in her chest as she peeked through a pane in the door. Wyatt's mom was the epitome of style and grace. Her honey blonde hair was poker straight, rounding on her shoulders. She had on a red silk dress shirt and sat behind a stately walnut desk, stylish red glasses perched on her nose. "Hey, Mom!" Wyatt exclaimed as he jumped into the room. His mom nearly jumped out of her skin. Her hand flew to her chest. "Charlie!" She shot him an exasperated look. "You nearly caused me to have a heart attack." "Sorry, Mother," he chimed in a cavalier manner as he strolled around the desk. She stood, a smile curving her lips. "I'm glad you're here." They embraced in a tight hug. Haven hung back, feeling awkward. A second later, Wyatt glanced back over his shoulder and motioned. Haven stepped forward, fixing a rubbery smile on her face. "Hello." She thrust out her hand. "It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Davenport." "Beverly, please," she said in a cultured Charlestonian drawl that sounded like Scarlett O'Hara from Gone with the Wind. She ignored Haven's outstretched hand as she pulled her into a hug. The subtle scent of her expensive perfume wafted through Haven's nostrils. She released Haven and looked her up and down with a keen eye, much as Marguerite had done. "You're stunning," she declared, as if she were examining a piece of art. "Well, thank you. You're beautiful too," Haven said. Beverly's eyes widened in surprise, and she rewarded Haven with a grateful smile. "Why, thank you, Bren," she said graciously. At first, Haven thought Beverly was around her same height, but then she looked down at her pointy-toed, oyster-colored heels peeking out beneath her winter white slacks. Beverly had a petite, thin build. The faint dusting of freckles over her nose reminded Haven of dots of cinnamon. Her piercing blue eyes were the same color as Wyatt's, or vice versa. "How was your drive in?" Wyatt grinned, his eyes connecting with Haven's. "It was interesting." Beverly motioned to the twin high-back white leather chairs in front of her desk. "Have a seat." She walked around and sat behind the desk as Wyatt and Haven took their seats. "Well, what happened?" Beverly asked, curiosity lighting her features. Wyatt crossed his legs in a wide stance, his ankle resting on his knee. He reached for Haven's hand, linking his fingers through hers. The gesture was personal, protective. Haven was grateful for it. Nevertheless, heat crept into her cheeks when Beverly's gaze lingered on their clasped hands. Haven tried to get a read on Beverly's expression. Did she approve of Haven, Bren, or was she still holding to the idea that Wyatt would be better off with his ex-girlfriend? Last night, we stopped in a little town called Remember, North Carolina, and stayed at an inn. We met an elderly lady named Lillian. This morning, when we were eating breakfast, Lillian asked if we'd go to a nearby stream and search for her lost wedding ring. A puzzled look overtook Beverly's features. "Well, that's odd." "We thought so too," Wyatt agreed. "Anyway, to make a long story short, we didn't find the ring." He glanced at Haven. "We found something else, a box filled to the top with jewelry." Haven couldn't help but grin inwardly at the bewilderment on Beverly's face as Wyatt told her the rest. When he'd finished, Beverly sat back in her chair. She propped her elbows on her desk, her fingers forming a steeple. "That's one of the strangest things I've ever heard." Wyatt uncrossed his legs and sat up straight, releasing Haven's hand. "Unfortunately, there were scads of reporters there. They realized who I am. I'm sure it'll make national news." A shudder ran through Haven. The story would break, and then this wonderful dream would come crumbling down around her. Beverly's face fell. "Great," she exhaled. "We do not need reporters hounding us during Christmas. I hope to have a quiet family celebration." She drummed her fingers on her desk. "Does your dad know?" "No, I haven't told him yet." She blew out a long breath. "I'll discuss it with him when he gets home." She rubbed a hand across her forehead. Of all the people to find that box. Wyatt pushed out a dark chuckle. Believe me, I know. He spread his hands in defeat. We were trying to do a good deed. Yes, Haven agreed glumly. No good deed goes unpunished. Beverly gave her a questioning look. Well, I would think that something like this would bode well for you, considering the publicity it will generate. Haven tensed, catching the subtle cut in Beverly's voice. Yes, Bryn would love the publicity, but not her. She chose her words carefully, trying to keep her tone neutral. Well, like you and Wyatt, I'd hope to have a nice, quiet Christmas. She thought she caught a flicker of admiration in Beverly's eyes, but it was hard to tell for sure through her glasses. Well, it sounds like it's out of our hands now, Beverly lamented. She tipped her head. Oh, what are you going to do with the jewelry? Hyatt turned to Haven, his expression suggesting that he had never even thought about it. I don't know. Do you want it? Haven felt Beverly's eyes on her as they awaited her answer. Was it a crime to want a little extra spending money? She'd like to buy some good winter boots, a new coat, maybe tuck aside a little for a rainy day. Only those who had more than enough money to spare acted as though money was inconsequential. I'm not sure, she finally said. Well, the good news is that you don't have to decide today, Beverly said. Her tone had a forced cheerfulness, letting Haven know that she'd given the wrong answer. Well, what's on the agenda? Wyatt asked, changing the subject. Beverly's eyes took on a new light. Tonight's our Christmas karaoke. Haven's heart sank. Karaoke? Really? I can't sing, she said. That wasn't exactly true. Haven could sing, but she didn't like singing in front of people. Wyatt laughed. Don't worry, it's more for fun rather than skill. That didn't help one iota to ease Haven's trepidation. What had she gotten herself into? A peculiar expression came over Beverly. The Schneiders are joining us. Seriously? Wyatt lamented. Beverly gave him a reproving look. They join us every year. Who are the Schneiders? Haven asked. The parents of my ex-girlfriend Kat, Wyatt muttered. Oh. Needles pricked Haven's spine. The ex-girlfriend was coming tonight. She assumed Kat would come to the Christmas Eve party, but Haven didn't figure on having her around at other events. Knowing Beverly was watching her like a hawk, Haven tried her best to keep her expression guarded. Neil and Lois are two of my closest friends, Beverly said stiffly. Just because you and Kat had a tiff doesn't mean I'm going to stop inviting the Schneiders over. Wyatt let out a long breath. Fine. He offered Haven an apologetic smile. We're not going to let my past with Kat ruin our Christmas. Okay, Haven said dully. Did Wyatt still have feelings for Kat? He was certainly sensitive where she was concerned. Let me tell everyone that you're here. Beverly stood and walked over to the wall near the double French doors. She pushed a button on what Haven soon realized was an intercom. Wyatt and Bryn are here, she announced. We're in my study. I'll be right down, a woman said. On our way, another added. The meeting with Beverly had gone better than she anticipated. For the most part, Haven liked her. There was the jab about the publicity, but that didn't apply to Haven. Like Beverly, Haven preferred staying out of the limelight. She also wanted a quiet family Christmas, not necessarily in this enormous mansion, but beggars couldn't be choosers. She was with Wyatt. That was what mattered most. Haven sat up in her seat and took in a deep breath, preparing herself for round 2. All right, what did you think of Marguerite? I really like her. I thought she was funny. How about Beverly? What do you think of her? Should Haven keep the jewelry? I can understand why she would want to keep it or sell it for extra money. I mean, Beverly's perspective does come from someone who has lots of money. It's ironic that Wyatt and Haven were the ones to find the jewelry, two people who don't want to be thrown into the limelight. Yikes about Kat's family coming to Christmas karaoke. Would you enjoy Christmas karaoke? I would. I'm a big karaoke fan. I would love to talk my family into doing that, but alas, I don't think they would go for it. I suppose I'll have to live vicariously through Wyatt and his family. Okay, what's going to happen next? Find out as we read the next chapter. Here's to keeping it sweet and swoony. See y'all tomorrow.